website. Of course you do. It's for your business. You have online presence. You have customers. You have clients. There's all these things. How do you maintain it? What do you do with it? How do you know if you're setting the right one up? What if you want to create courses? What if you want to create trainings? I am beyond thrilled because what we're going to be sharing in this episode deals with exactly all of that. I have none other than the CEO of Wicked Cool Plugins, Ravi Jayagopal. And I didn't know the company name, right? You put it on the form, right, Ravi? But if you've ever heard of Digital Access Pass and wanted to do membership sites, he's here, and he's going to be sharing along with the other dozens and dozens of plugins he's done. He's an author, he's a speaker, he's a trainer, he has a podcast, and he's going to be sharing all of this insight, and I'm beyond thrilled. So I'm going to just stop now, cue the sponsor, and I'm going to bring up Ravi Jayagopal after this. Here he is, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ravi Jayagopal. Ravi, how are you doing today?
Hey Mario, how are you? Doing
I'm
great, thanks.
excited to hear what you're going to share because I've known about you for a while, and it was cool to see your name on the list, and I just can't wait to hear what you have to say.
Looking forward to it.
How did you decide to get into of everything in the world? I mean, there's the plugin side of the websites, there's the programming, there's the design, there's the layout, there's the marketing of it. There's so much that goes into websites and the internet. How did you get into the plugin side of it?
Sure. So the first thing I want to clarify, I'm not exactly the CEO because titles don't mean much. It's my wife and I, and we have a team. So I'm more like the CEO, the Chief Everything Else Officer. I wear all the other hats that are discarded, and my wife takes care of the development and the support. And so I'm doing the operations and the marketing and this and podcast and
But you're both
coaching.
the co-founders.
Yes, we are. Yes.
Okay,
So
excellent.
yeah, so the titles, we don't really give much credence to that because for the purposes of tax filing, I'm like the secretary. So we just make up whatever we need to. There's no real org structure. We're small business, and we just make things up on the fly and just keep running.
Small
So
business, you've been. It was more of I know what you've built and it's impressive, and I'm excited for you to dive in with that. I just wanted everyone to know that you didn't just start working here last week or something. You've been at it for a minute or two, and it's a great company you've built.
thank you. A lot of credit to my wife, Veena Prashant, who's the co-founder and co-developer of DAP. So the way things started out was many years ago, I started selling stuff online, digital products. I had a baby names website. This was back when I was living in India. And then I started realizing that I could sell stuff online. So I was selling books, real physical books. And then the cost of shipping from India to all over the world was so prohibitive that it just wasn't working out. And the cost of the book was like a fraction of the shipping costs. So, and luckily Amazon didn't have the book at the time. So I was selling a lot of copies. And then I said, I got to go digital. So I figured out, okay, I'm going to do a PDF, and then how do I sell it? And so it's just always been being in the trenches, in the weeds, when you're working on the stuff, you get a lot of different ideas. So just execution, right? So then we moved to the US, and we were both having full-time jobs, and I was doing all this stuff on the side, learning PHP and MySQL. So I started this PHP script. Again, I'm a developer and a hardcore geek at heart. And so I started creating stuff for myself. So I created a contact us form PHP. People in 2019 won't even know what a contact us form script is, because you're using WordPress or some kind of a CMS, and all that stuff comes built in. But back then, late 90s, early 2000s, even if you needed a simple form, you had to contact a developer for it. You had to have somebody create the HTML form. Then when you hit submit, where does it go? Who gets emailed? All that stuff had to be configured using PHP. So I started creating one, and then somebody contacted me and say, hey, can you do that for me? For my website. So I charged $30 for the very first time I sold that script to somebody. And guess what? It's a long story, but I'll filter it down. The person who bought the script from me was Ryan Dice.
No kidding.
So yeah, he was the first guy who said, hey, I want that baby names, the form that you have on that site. So I customized it. Then I sold him a script that he could sell to somebody. He white labeled it. And then I started selling my ebook. So I wanted a way to, back then, PayPal, the way PayPal worked back then, you created a button, right, for whatever, $5. And while you were creating the button, there was a thing that said, where do they go after they have completed the purchase, right? The landing page URL. So you put the landing page URL. So they went to the button, they clicked on it, they went to PayPal, logged in, paid, and came back to the thank you page URL. That's where you would put the download link to your PDF or executable or whatever it is you were selling. But the problem is, if you went to the sales page and did a view source, right under the button, you could see the thank you page URL. So you could go right to it and download the PDF. So a lot of people were having
no password protection or anything on there.
Correct. So there was nothing to prevent only authorized buyers. So, and even if it was just simple password protection, somebody could pass it around, right? So there was all these problems that PDF creators were facing. So I was facing that myself. And so I said, okay, how do I figure something out? So I started playing with PHP and PayPal, and created the world's first PayPal download protector, I called it. So I had this suite of PHP scripts, right? It was called Webmaster in a Box. And then Google slapped me because somebody put some junk stuff. I got hacked. And then I had to change it to my Webmaster in a Box. So basically, I was selling ready-made PHP scripts that you could buy, and just like a plugin, right? It's the earlier versions of plugins. You buy the PHP script, you open it with Notepad, and you change the email. It says insert email here. You change it to your email. If you have a website, you change it to your domain, and then you upload it to your website, and boom, now it becomes your script. So that's what I was selling. And then came WordPress. I started playing with WordPress and did a whole bunch of stuff with it. I created a contact us form plugin. That's the first thought I had, right? Because I wanted to see how to not create it in PHP. So I created that. And then soon again, I started creating, I had a membership site at the time. So I was using my own scripts. And then one of the problems I had was a lot of people were asking how to schedule content. Nobody was able to do it, right? So what people would do is, all these big gurus, I saw it over and over again, they would launch a membership, right? So traffic marketing, whatever, Facebook marketing course, right? They would launch it in 2019. The next year, when they relaunched it, the same course for 2020, they had created all this content and this community and all this stuff, but somebody who went in 2020 could get everything on day one, which means people would not stay for a year. They would just go there, download everything, read everything, and then ask for a refund. So there was no way to start everything over.
Content like there
right
is now.
So, and people didn't have the concept of what drip content is. So that's when I actually created content dripping back in 2007. And they said, you know what, you have WordPress, create all this content I called it a content responder. So you can create like an autoresponder. You queue up all this content ahead of time, and then you say, okay, this goes out on day 1, this becomes available on day 2, this becomes available on day 7 or 14 or however. And they would, even if somebody got the link to it and went there, it would say, sorry, this is not yet available to you. So that's how I came up with the concept. And then we incorporated it into DAP. At the time, we were both working in full-time jobs, so I was doing coding on the side. And then DAP was launched, and we did pretty okay for the first 2-3 months of 2008. The last 3 months when it was launched, in October 2008. And then my wife was looking for a better opportunity at the time. She was unhappy at work, and she had hit the proverbial glass ceiling for women at that point. So she quit, and she jumped right into the business. And that year we did, like, I don't know, 2,000% increase in sales and customers and everything. And then that's when we knew that we had something that we could count on. So the following year, I quit, and we moved to San Diego, and we've been here ever since
Wow.
2010.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
When people come to you with ideas, how do you incorporate them as far as going, this is something we should add into the development, or this is something we should put, how do you discern, is it a short-term game plan, long-term game plan? Because I'm sure you get a lot of, hey, what about this? Can you add that?
Oh, yeah.
How do you keep it focused but also growing?
Yeah, that's one of the things my wife and I, we pride ourselves with in terms of product development, right? Because we came from technical backgrounds. We're both computer science engineers, and we both worked at Fortune 5, Fortune 10 companies, run big teams of development teams and developers and database people and project managers. So one of our biggest strengths is product development, which means figuring out what are the best features to incorporate into your products. So that comes from various different things. Like one of the things I believe in is minimum viable product. So I call it minimum viable everything. So whether it's minimum viable podcast, minimum viable book, Kindle book, like you don't have to write a 500-page book. You can write a 20-page Kindle book, that epic stuff that helps a reader do one thing really, really well and gives them instant gratification and instant results and quick execution. So same way, when we launched DAP, one of my focuses was it has to have certain features, but not everything. So we said, okay, it needs to have PayPal integration. And back then, ClickBank was there. So ClickBank integration. And there was this huge shopping cart back in the day called One Shopping Cart. So that had to be happen. So we like 2 or 3 we picked for the payment processors. And another thing I was very insistent on is that it has to have a built-in affiliate module. Because when everybody who joins your membership site, if imagine sending them a welcome email saying, hey, John, thank you for joining my course. Here's your affiliate link, personalized affiliate link. Feel free to use this to promote, and we'll give you 33% commissions. And they can start earning commissions even before their first payment has it, if it's a trial, right? So 2 weeks, they can start promoting it, and they can make back the money, and then membership is free. So always figuring out what you have to have the full picture in your mind for product development. You have to have what's critical now, which are the big bug fixes, right? Bug fixes always take highest priority because you don't want something breaking, right? Ability to scale. The basic features are always the highest priority, right? P1. So then comes stuff that can help bring in more stuff that your existing users are asking for, right? So if people are saying, I'm able to do this, but to do this, it takes me like 7 steps, right? So can you make it easier for me?
How can you do it in 3 or 4?
Right. And then how can you, and then maybe they don't even know that you probably don't even need to do that because you can do this other thing, or we can implement this other thing, which will eliminate the need for this. So that's where, they rely on us to know the whole product and the whole big picture, so that we can tell them, hey, by the way, did you know that you can do this and not that? And you don't need to do that because that's irrelevant now in today's world or whatever it is, right? Based on things, situation. and technology. So that comes like the second priority, what your existing customers want, how it can make them use your software better, how it can make it faster, uh, UI, UX, all that stuff. And then comes uh, what can you do to bring in new customers. So if there's a new payment platform like Stripe, right? So
Yes.
Stripe comes up a few years ago. I can't remember when, and everybody's like Stripe, 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 Stripe. So once you know that something is gaining ground, you want to get in first. You don't want to wait till all your competitors, everybody has implemented it. So you have to kind of take a chance to say, okay, Stripe looks like it's going to take off, right? There were like 15 payment processors that came in at the time, but you cannot do it for all of them. So you have to kind of like pick a winning horse, kind of, so to speak, right? So Authorize.net, Stripe, PayPal, ClickBank, so all these things. So you constantly have to keep your fingers on the pulse of your market, of your niche. You have to be able to talk to your customers, and it helps if you're doing that stuff yourself, because a lot of software developers, what I'll see is they will uh, implement based on what others are saying, but they're not using their own software. They'll use it to test it and stuff, but they're not in the weeds, like really using your eating your dog food just doesn't mean that taking a little bite and saying it's not bad, right? It's like, I'm eating this dog food for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and I wish I could do this, and it makes me thirsty or whatever. So you have to be living it in the weeds, and be in the thick of things to really experience their pain. And for that, you have to you cannot just use it as a test case. I'll just put up a test website, I'll just do the, if like a membership site. You have to have a real live membership site where people are paying and using your own software. Only then you will see,
So it
oh,
sounds like you're highly suggesting to always do a beta launch before you do a full launch.
absolutely. We never do a public launch, especially, I was going to do one of the podcast episodes I have coming up is what you can learn from a programmer, right? Lessons you can learn from a programmer, which is doing a beta launch. Never launch it live, right? And do a slow launch. Don't have to launch to everybody at the same time. And you find your early beta users, give them benefits, give them free stuff, allow them to test it, make them use it. So launch with the minimum viable product so that they're not holding on to till something else comes up. So your product has to be usable from day one, even if it's the smallest version of your product, right? So it has to let them do something. So if you want to launch like a membership software, for example, it has to have at least one payment processor, which is one of the more popular ones, right? So launch with at least PayPal and make it usable so that somebody can come pay and get access to the content. So those are the bare minimum requirements, right? Then you can add all this content dripping and affiliate modules and email broadcast, blah blah blah. So you have to layered development, phase development, launch in phases, and constantly. Then in programming lingo, there's something called waterfall method of development, which is a client comes to you and tells you, hey, I want this. And then the team goes away, comes back 1 year later and says, hey, here, look at what we developed. And the client goes, this is not what I wanted. 1 year, 2 years, I've seen teams get burned, thousands of billable man hours, person hours, and they get burned because they did not take ongoing feedback from the end user. So it's not just about, from all the stakeholders, whether it is your owners, the end users, the managers, the developers, the actual clients who are using it, the test users. So everybody has to be able to give you feedback, and there's a whole bunch of development terminology for that. They call sprints and rapid development, and there's a whole bunch of stuff. So you have to keep all that in mind, and you have to develop in bits and pieces. Make sure that every piece you add is usable on its own, without having to wait for 7 other pieces before it can work. And if you say, okay, all these 10 pieces have to be developed before this one thing can be used, then you push that to the back burner, and then you have to, those are the calls you have to make. And then you have
It
to say,
sounds like
okay,
that was a huge part of your success developing Digital Access Pass.
yeah, absolutely. Product development was absolutely critical, because a lot of the our competitors were either marketers who just hired somebody to do they said, this is what I want, and they had a bunch of developers overseas or whatever. So for us, the unique selling proposition was, we are the developers and we are the marketers, and we are the ones doing the product development, and
You
we
were
are the
right
ones
in
doing
there
the
from
support.
day one the whole way, and you still are.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, and now I'm slowly cutting back because my wife and her team has taken over the day-to-day development and support, and I'm not
But it's
involved in
also
that.
established. It's been over 10 years.
Oh yeah, it's 12 years now. So
Wow. Congrats
2008
on
was,
that. Who would
yeah.
you say DAP is best designed for?
It is for any WordPress user who wants to monetize their content. So if you're using WordPress, which is critical, right? Because it's a WordPress plugin, so you have to be using WordPress. And now a lot of people will create videos, audio, PDF, Excel spreadsheets, and some might want to sell images. Some might want to sell just audio files. Some might have a podcast that they want to make a premium podcast where only paid members can access the podcast. So it's not on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, or
So
Spotify.
monetizing their expertise and assets with WordPress.
Correct. So
Does
you
it
have a WordPress site and
does
you have
DAP
all this.
work with anything but WordPress?
It used to work with plain HTML, PHP sites, but WordPress has become so advanced, and all of our plugins are not, WordPress only. So it doesn't make sense to. So we don't support regular websites anymore, and it won't work on like Squarespace or ClickFunnels or anything. In fact, we have people who are using ClickFunnels. They will do their stuff and their funnel stuff in ClickFunnels, and then it talks back to a WordPress site where DAP is, and DAP has way of connecting with Zapier, and it has a whole bunch of
Oh,
integration with
interesting.
third-party sites. So you can still use other systems, and then you hook it up with DAP using Zapier, or DAP has its own APIs that you can connect with, and then you bring the data in here. Now you have everything in one place. So you can have 10 ClickFunnels funnels, but you're bringing everybody into one place in WordPress, and now you have the full control, right? You have DAP, which is a WordPress plugin. So it's all on your site. The users are on your site. The payments are on your site because you use your own PayPal account, your own Stripe account. But when you use a third-party system, Patreon or any of that stuff, right? So you are basically putting all your eggs in their basket, which is a scary thought. So that's one of the things I recommend. Always make sure, no matter, the content can be recreated, the videos you already have on your computer before uploading it, the audio is on your computer or your assistant or your developer's computer. All the content is easy to move from a third-party system to yours. One thing you cannot move is the payment, billing information, billing profiles. So if you're selling subscriptions and you have your monthly payments coming in through Patreon or Udemy, right? All the payments are going into their system, their PayPal account, their Stripe account, their credit card account. They're paying you. If you leave overnight, you lose all of your income. You can, unless you have to ask everybody, hey, cancel your subscription over there and come back here and re-sign up, and that's a death knell.
That's a good expert authority insight you're sharing, because so many people that ask me stuff, whether I'm presenting or working one-on-one with them, they think it's with the technology. And if there's one thing I've learned working with my team, it's you can pretty much do anything with enough time and enough budget. The bigger issue is, I was having this conversation earlier with someone going, well, why do you think they're still doing this? And I go, I don't think it's the technology. It's people's behaviors and habits. I mean, when you said ask everyone to cancel their subscription, move over to the new thing and re-sign it up, I mean, that's all the momentum and inertia you need initially to even get them to invest or do, that's the whole sales cycle and marketing in a nutshell. You need to break down those walls to get them to make the decision. And now you're just like, hey, go do that again.
And you'll lose 90%. I promise you, like 90% of them will might say, oh, like there'll be 30% will be like, oh, I didn't know I had that. Let me just go ahead and cancel. It's like sending people an email and saying, hey, if you no longer want to be on this list, if you want to be on this list, let me know. If not, you'll be gone, right? Most people will be like, whatever, and they'll be gone. So if you want people to move, it's very hard because their credit card stuff might have changed. They may no longer have that they may be using PayPal. There may not be enough money in their PayPal, so you have to take advantage of I'm not saying that you're getting all your money because people are too lazy to cancel. That's not the case. Sometimes we want certain stuff, and when you're rudely awakened and said, hey, get up and move, that's when you're basically making people think, do
Yeah,
I
if
really
you
need
signed up for
need
the
this?
thing 2 years ago because it was on sale or something, one of my good friends over on the West Coast with you, I've asked her before, and I remember I help a lot of people, look for profit centers in their business, acquiring more clients and stuff. And we were just having a casual conversation, and I could tell something was up, and I was like, what's going on? And it came down to just like billing and subscriptions and stuff. I go, let me take a look at your stuff. Same thing I do with companies. And there was like 16 or 17 subscriptions she was signed up for. And I was like, after, reviewing the finances and business, I was like, and it was saving her thousands a month. And she's like, well, let me think about it. Well, I went in and just started calling the people and started canceling stuff for her. And like 3 weeks later, she was like, oh my gosh, there's like all this extra money in my account. I'm like, yeah, that's profit you were throwing away, to your point of you may have not looked at anything in 12 months
Right.
and you may have not used it. But for the people who do want to use it, make it easy for them. Don't make me jump through 15 hoops for something I need to use. Tell me,
Right.
with all the people, you don't need to give the exact number, but I'm sure it's larger than I think, of all the people that are using DAP or have, because I can think of hundreds of people that have mentioned it to me. What is one or two of your biggest success stories that you can think of?
uh See, we are not a hosted system like ClickFunnels, right? Or when you have the data on your site, you can say Patreon says we can say Patreon can say we process $20 million a month in billing, right? We don't have everything is on people's websites, and just like a man's salary or a woman's age or a podcaster's downloads, people don't share that stuff, right? So it's very hard to guess. We have had some people tell us, I can't disclose who, but they have over 500,000 paying subscribers, and maybe probably not all of them paying at the same time. Some might have canceled, some might have been
But still, half a
one off,
million
half,
anything
yeah,
is
yeah. So
decent.
um and DAP is infinitely scalable because your only bottleneck is your server. So MySQL, which is the database platform we use, is can have 1 terabyte of data, whatever. It's like hundreds of millions of rows of data, and your hard disk on your server is just
That's
based
all.
on the
Only a
hosting
terabyte of databases.
row in just in the rows, right? In number of um, rows of information. So it's like Facebook is 2 billion. So you can have, it's 2 billion users of data worth of data is stored in the database. That's what I'm talking about. So MySQL can have the same thing. PHP is super fast, right? WordPress is pretty fast when you configure it and use it carefully without, bogging it down with too many different plugins, when you use caching and use all the right things. So when you have it on your own server, there are no limits. You can have unlimited users, unlimited payments, everything. The bottleneck is your server. So it's like if you have a 2-bedroom house, you cannot throw a party for 100 people in it, right? So you just need to get a bigger room if you need more people. So that's all. The bottleneck is your house or your web host. So just upgrade to the next one, VPS, and get more memory, and that's it. So
Maybe
uh,
switch the spinners to some SSDs or NVMe drives.
yeah, absolutely. And then higher level of memory, and
And for
there's
anyone who doesn't know what that is, the spinners I refer to are the old-fashioned hard drives that literally spin. Solid state drives I recommend for everyone. And what I put in my new design for the live stream machine here for the show are NVMe that are about 10 times faster than solid state for the bottleneck. It's just all faster. Use NVMe. It's awesome. It's like 1.5 to 2.5 gig throughput on it. It's awesome for doing 4K video like this.
Right. So yeah, it's just improve the server configuration, and you have an unlimited size membership site, any number of users. So we have a lot of people. The average membership site, I might say, has like 2,000, 5,000 users, right? Because the average WordPress website owner is not going to have millions of users, right? So you have all the way from somebody who launched it and was
Let
not
me
able to
pause you right
sell it.
there. Something happened with your connection. If you could start back with the average website's about 2 to 5,000.
Right. So the average membership site owner is going to have, probably a couple of thousand users. I'm just guessing, right? We don't have the data, and we don't have access to their website. It's all on their website. So that's the cool part about it too. On a hosted platform, people can run analytics on your stuff, how many users you have, because you're hosting everything on their site. But when everything's on your site, even the website developers or the plugin developers don't have no insight. There's no callback, a phone home with data, right? So none of it there. So we just have to guess. But we've seen 500,000 paying customers. That's a few $1 million a year, all the way down to probably 100, 200 users, and they never launched it, or they couldn't find success, because launching membership site doesn't guarantee you success, right? You still have to know how to promote it, market it, and how to uh, build an audience. So all of those other things is what I'm focusing on right now, because we've got the plugin part covered. My wife, she keeps developing. She developed a smartpaycart.com, which is like a shopping cart, the best shopping cart for WordPress. Some of the stuff. So we keep coming out with features for users as well as people who you can bring in with new features and new additions. So now that that part is covered, the next part is coaching and community, and that's the part like I have going on with my Digital Creators Academy. So you have one-on-one coaching and group coaching and helping people execute. That's the hardest part for a lot of people, because obviously the technical part is hard too, but we have help for that. We have people who can take care of that, and there's a lot of WordPress developers and webmasters you can hire, and that'll help you with designing your page. Use like a Thrive Architect, drag and drop theme, blah blah blah. So you got that part
Do
covered.
you think
Next
there's
part is
more people now that aren't necessarily even developers, but the developers have made it so easy and there's so much free training out there? I remember when I first started web design in '99 and doing things, and it was just like you'd be hard pressed to find an article on how to render a JPEG image at the top logo of a page. And now it's like, oh, you want to build, a castle? Here's the step by step for free on YouTube or something.
order the plane and put together the parts online, right? So you can literally order a plane on eBay or something. I'm sure there's a small plane you can order. So yeah, I always talk about this in my podcast and when I'm talking to people. Back in the day, technology was the challenge, and I remember trying to create a video, and it was so hard, right? There was no software, there was no YouTube. So I started off with Camtasia Studio in the early 2000s. I still use it to today. That's one of my favorite tools. So you had to capture it again. Remember, there's no smartphones, there's no camera, so you have to have this bulky
There was no
SL.
YouTube, and data limits weren't 500 to a gig bandwidth. It was what, 28.8K, and maybe if you had a 1 or 2 meg connection, you were rocking.
Yeah, absolutely. Key, right? Dial up, and so you going through all that. Technology was a problem. Connecting, creating. Like we had this huge. I had this huge camcorder. Most people probably won't have heard of that word. So camcorder. It's then you
VHS.
have the VHS tapes, 8 millimeter tapes, and then now the next challenge is how the heck do you get it from there to your computer? So now you have to go and buy cables, and you go to the store. There's like 17 cables, and you got to bring your camcorder, because you cannot, there's no quick way to figure out what the cable is. So now the guy is helping you plug in things. Oh, that's a Firewire IEEE cable. You're like, what? So you connect
You're
that,
bringing me
and
back
now,
to college.
yeah, and then now the other end, you take that home and you're like all excited, and the other end, there's nothing to plug into your computer. There's nothing on this on your computer that looks anything like this. So now you got to find a jack to so it's like endlessly
Don't forget the editing. You're not
editing,
talking
right?
Photoshop, you're talking video editing.
Video editing. Now you have to learn Camtasia and photo. There's a whole bunch of photo or video software that was available, and then it was not available for the Mac. It was an executable, and if you download it from the wrong website, now you have a computer full of viruses because it's an executable file and it deleted a whole bunch of your stuff. And so it's like, so back in the day, technology was the challenge, but if you could somehow overcome all of those challenges, you could get some attention, because attention was in abundance, right? There's not no YouTube, no Instagram, no blog, anything, no social media. So if you are able to get the word out there, and if you could sign a few joint venture partners, you could get the word out there and build a list.
They'll buy it from
Now,
you just because they're impressed you were able to figure it out to that point.
yeah, you just show a couple of things on your screen, they're like, wow, look at this guy, he is showing stuff, his head is in the corner of the screen, my goodness, this is like pretty slick. And if you say I'll show you how to do all of this stuff, I'll set it up, then they're like, I'm in. And now it's like you fire up the camera, you're live on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, everything, all the channels you can be live on. People don't absolutely no hurdles, but that's the problem. There are no hurdles to
Why
anything.
live stream when you can do a free conference call over the phone?
Exactly. A Zoom is free, right? GoToMeeting. I remember when I signed up for GoToMeeting back in the day, we were paying $5,000 a year, and it came to 1,000, and it came to 500 and 200. Now it's like $12 a month, right? You can sign up 150 people on your phone call. Back then you had to do teleseminar.com, all this audio thing. People had to call in from a phone. They had to go to a place, there's no cell phones, so they had to go to a place where they had a landline. So many things, so it's always one thing or the other. So back in the day, technology was super hard, attention was in abundance.
What's
Right
the
now,
bottleneck now?
oh, attention, right? So everybody is an expert. I jokingly talk about this on my podcast. Seth Godin ruined the internet by writing a book called Everybody's an Expert, right? So yeah, everybody thinks they're an expert. Every 19-year-old is a life coach, and then the people who are overweight are fitness coaches, or they just lost weight for like 3 months and now they're like a fitness guru, right? So everybody is trying to. There's a lot of fake stuff, a lot of um, uh, you know fraudulent stuff going on, a lot of misleading stuff. Everybody is a podcast. Everybody who has a podcast is now a podcast guru, and I keep running into these people doing all this weird stuff, and I say, hey, why are you doing this? You don't need to do this. And they're like, oh, I'm following this guy who's like a big name and he told me you have to do this. So you have a lot of bad information because everybody's an expert, and finding the right people to follow and knowing what to do. Because what happens is, I talked about this in my course, 1001 True Fans, which is based on Kevin Kelly's 1000 True Fans concept. Is if you go to somebody who's famous for having a podcast and tell them, how do I build an audience? They're going to tell you, start a podcast, which is the worst thing to do. If you have never built an audience, you don't have anybody, and you're going to say, I'm going to build a podcast so that I can build an audience, and so then I can convert some of them and to my product, and then I can sell stuff. It's like saying, you need to I need food tomorrow on the table, my family is starving, what do I do? And the guru says, go plant a tree in the backyard, right? It makes no sense. Yeah, 2 years from now the tree will grow and bear fruit, blah blah blah. But if you want food to put food on the table today or tomorrow or next week, you got to go get a job, and not even go look for freelancing gigs, because even that takes time, because you need to have a website, you need to have some credibility and show people. So there are different stages of building an audience that you build for now, for that you need today to make some money, and then for 3 months from now, and 1 year from now, and 5 years from now. So podcast is a long-term play, because guess what? The first thing you do after you launch a podcast, you're looking for people to listen to it. Now you got to go find people to listen to it. So why go like that when to touch your nose when you can do this, right? So if you want people to buy your course, then don't launch a podcast, and then you got get lost in the rabbit hole of what mic to use, what gear, what should I use, the mixer, should I use this, what hosting company, and then 6 8 months later you're not launching a podcast and you haven't sold a damn thing, right? So there's different phases of there's different way to approach everything, whether it's website development. I see people creating a website and they'll say my website is very slow, your DApp is causing problems, and you log in and they'll have like 150 plugins installed, right? Worthless plugins that is completely draining their site. So figuring out minimum viable website, minimum viable product, minimum viable podcast, minimum viable YouTube channel. So
Do enough
those
to
are,
get it off the ground, it sounds like.
yeah, keep
One of
it
the things I
simple, bare
love
minimum.
about courses and when I'm helping my clients publish their books and create their own stuff, I really truly believe people that have the courses, there's a difference in the type of person, because I agree 100%. I mean, one of the reasons I created the expert authority effect is to help the true experts and authorities, because there's so many of them out there that really do know what they are talking about. They do have the expertise. They are verified. They are qualified. One of the things I look for is like, do you have an actual product or service that helps people? And do you have success stories? Like, can you prove it, basically? There's a lot of people who can, and they fall short on the tech and the marketing. Conversely, the people who know what to do with the button pushing and the computers and the tech, and I mean, they're great. But there's so many, like you're saying, when you made that comment, and just for the record, Ravi made it over here. It wasn't me when you were saying the person who lost weight for 2 or 3 months and now they're a fitness guru. Like, good for them for doing it, but I get
Right.
the point in the analogy. Like, you're just learning. Everyone's congratulating me on my show, and I'm like, I'm still new at this. It hasn't even been a full year. I'm still learning, and I look for people with courses, truthfully, because I've put together my own. I've published many books. I help people do it, and it is not an easy point, click, and you're done. And I'm not saying programming is either any of the other stuff, but there's a difference. When you can take your information and distill it down, I really believe, here's the real reason. You can tell anyone one-on-one, I'm the expert, look at me, I can help you. And you can be very persuasive and influential. When it's one-on-one, the internet doesn't know. Now, that is a very bad thing if you're trying to grow your company, because the internet, everything happens on, and the internet doesn't know. The safety net is you can be doing whatever you want, whether it's moral, ethical, or legal, and the internet doesn't know. The second you go, you know what, I'm going to put my name on this, I'm going to do it consistently, I'm going to go public, I'm going to make it very visible and easy to find me. Here's a lot of stuff that you can be dissecting when I'm not even around, like the books, the courses, the trainings. It's powerful because you can help. If you really have the heart to help people, you can truly help so many people. But you're also kind of on this glass house where anyone can tear you apart at any given time, and you can wake up to emails. As long as you're doing it right, it doesn't happen. But I think part of it is the fear of they know they're doing something and they don't want to wake up to everyone calling them out on it, basically.
Yeah, I mean, putting yourself out there is really hard for a lot of people. See, I'd been selling online since '97, right? And I have been listening to podcasts from 2005. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. So one of the earliest shows I was listening to, I used to download it, rip the MP3, download it, put it on my stupid MP3 player back then, and then listen to it on the subway ride in New York City. So I've been listening to audio in podcasts for a very long time. But when I finally decided to start a podcast, it took me almost like 6 months to commit to it, because I was worried about my accent. Will people understand what I'm saying? So many different things, constraints we put on in our head, right? Same
Yeah, like you're
way.
saying, it's not an overnight thing. It's a absolutely. I think it's a great thing. I'm excited I did, but it wasn't like day two. It's like here's a million subscribers or downloaders or what are they called? Subscribers.
Yeah, downloads. Yeah, subscribers, downloads. Yeah. So yeah, it's never one big aha moment that you wake up and you come across this. Oh, because everything you can think of has already been done by somebody. It's very rare unless you're like planning a thing to the Mars. Even people have already put machines on Mars already, so
Yeah, look
even
at
that
that.
is not
Unless
going
you're
to be.
going to the moon or Mars, been there, done that, got the T-shirt.
Yeah, everybody, unless you're the first person to go to Pluto or something, just almost very little thing, and there are no unique ideas anymore. It's all in the execution. And the 1,000 people, that's the beauty of the law of diminishing returns is, 100 people can have the same idea, right? Only 10% would actually do something about it. So there's 10 people, and out of those 10 people, only like 3 people will see to completion, right? And then once it's completed, only one will keep going to promote it. So it's like always coming down. So you never have to worry that, oh, this race is starting off with like 100 people. I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to survive? So if you just keep doing, if you just stay the course, you will be the one of the few last people standing, because distraction, social media, and not having the right priorities, it's people are gonna drop off, like the Boston Marathon or whatever. So you start, so many people start, but after a while you see only a few people running. Obviously in that case, the fitness, I would never make it past like maybe 5 miles. So I know what it takes, right, to do, because the planning, the development, whether it's a course or, and keeping it simple, minimum viable product, and then launching it, creating the sales copy, putting the videos, creating the videos, coming up with the script for the sales video, not to sound too salesy, how to sell it, how to position it. There's so many things you have to get right to go from start to finish, unless you have already have a team. And most people starting out will not have a team, and they'll not be able to afford a team. So that's where some of
And now
my
you're back
products
to
and
sales
services.
anyhow because you're not going to have a team unless you can sell
Correct, you can
or
sell.
monetize it or do something because
Right, execution. So every step of the way, what software do I use to do this? Where do I store this? How do I get it here? How do I promote this to my audience? Does my video look okay? Right, you need guidance at every step of the time, of the process, to say people, to tell people, use this is the kind of mic you should use for this kind of purpose, or this is the kind of lighting you should have, or whatever. So, and use this software to do the editing. And when you do it, make sure you do it in a horizontal, so you can use it on maximum number of platforms. And even on the vertical platforms, you can use the horizontal video, you can add stuff at the top and bottom. So there's like repurposing content, there's so many little things. And you always wish that, there was this one friend you had who would like, hey, what TV did you suggest buying, right? I have my brother-in-law who's like a home electronics geek, right? So he's always doing research. So, or my other friend who's into cars. So you always have this one person who knows about a specific thing. You can ask, hey, what is the best surround sound speaker for the house, right? Because that guy, that guy has been spent like last 2 years of his life researching that, and he bought the best one available. So you just say, oh, what did you buy? Okay, I'll get that.
but if you
So
take too long, there's a new one. If it's 2 years later, it's no longer the best.
right. So there are always these obsessive people in your life who are keeping up to date with all the things. So I'm that guy when it comes to online marketing and tech, and especially tech. I'm not the type of guru who says I'll help you scale from or zero to 8 figures, right? I'm not in that niche. I'm in the niche of whatever you need to execute, that I can help you with, whether it's
But that's the
making,
key
marketing,
to it. That
monetizing.
I mean, that's the building block and the basis of all of it. And I like what you were saying about repurpose. And shout out to Hanny because
Repurpose.io. Yep.
yep, repurpose.io. If you check out episode 84, I had him on, and I love his software. Use it for my show.
Fantastic.
And that's the thing is like you're talking about that minimum viable product. I'm always thinking in the terms of leverage and speed. how many ways can I take this episode and make it easier for you to promote, easier for my team to promote, easier for me to promote? What can we do with it? If we're going to commit and do it the right way, let's just go all in and do it the absolute right way. And it boggles my mind when people are going, well, I want like a good mic, but not the best one. And I kind of want to do it like this. I want this end result, but I want, like, they're wishy-washy, like halfway through. It's like, I want the end product of doing this 7 days a week, but I only want to do it one. Like, you want to win the race, but you want to use a tricycle to get there.
Cool. Right. Or people go the other direction. I had somebody reach out to me to buy one of my podcast related products. And he was like, Ravi, I have everything ready. I'm ready to go. I bought the Heil PR40, like $500 mic. He bought a mixer. He doesn't know how to use any of it, right? He bought a mixer. He went and got some expensive lights and all this background and whole bunch of stuff, like $2,000 to $3,000 spent. Doesn't have a podcast, has never created anything before, has not. I said, you could have bought a $65 ATR 2100 if you're going to do a solo show. And you can sit in front of your computer, $100 webcam.
Was he even looking to live stream it or anything? Why would you need
the
lights?
I don't know. He's like, people, plan for the next 20 years of their life, and you can just do what you need right now, right? It's like just in time
One
learning.
of the best questions I've got, because I'm all about the expensive Heil PR40 over here. I think it sounds great, and I love the gold and black on it.
Absolutely.
But there's so many people going, all right, I got this $60 microphone, and they're spending $500 on acoustical foam to pad a room. They live in a subway. They live near a subway. It's
subway,
just like, how about just don't record there? Or, you know what I mean? It's like, don't take a bad, I'm not saying the $60 mic is bad. I should have said the $20 mic, but it's like, they won't invest in the mic, but they'll spend $800 on room padding. And I'm like, do you want to live in a padded room, or what's the deal here? Like,
right. Or they'll go and purchase a course about promoting their podcast for $2,000, where you could have used that to run ads.
You got?
And run ads.
8?
They're like, oh, I got to do a big launch. This was recently, it happened like 2 days ago. A person says, hey, randomly out of nowhere, random acquaintance on Facebook, hey, can you please leave a rating and a review for my podcast? And I said, you do know that, only 60% of people use Apple Podcasts, 40% are using Spotify and Google Podcasts and Overcast app. So your rating and a review on Apple Podcasts is not going to show to them. All right. They can't even see it. And most people today are not listening to podcasts based on how many reviews they got, right? Nobody's searching for reviews anymore. The only place reviews matter is Amazon, right? Or, one of these review sites where you're researching how many other people left a review and how high the reviews are. Podcast is almost always comes from a trusted source. They look for something, they're passionate about something. Like I'm into basketball. I've subscribed to like 15 basketball shows, NBA shows, right?
Like movie recommendations.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not I'm not subscribing only to podcasts. I'm not going to Apple Podcasts and searching how many reviews does this podcast have and then subscribing. It's like, if it has, NBA and basketball, and if I look at the title and it's reasonable title, and as long as the latest episode is within the last month or so, I'm done. I'm in. Unless it's like 3 years ago, then I know it's inactive. But so people are not looking.
Maybe
so I told them,
good though.
Yeah, but no,
still be a good episode.
Yeah, the problem is with sports, it doesn't work like that. With other things, it might work, right? Like with my digital marketing podcast, some of the things might work, the concepts and strategies. But if I'm talking about YouTube in a specific way, and what happened in YouTube recently, and how they're saying we'll delete your account if it's not
episode 2016 changes.
Right. So it's not going to be relevant. So it depends on the show, but in sports, especially, if the people you're talking about may not even be in the NBA anymore, leave alone on the same teams. So, yeah. So I told this person, don't focus on ratings and reviews. It's not going to help you. Focus on getting people to subscribe to your show, right? Because podcast subscriptions is what affects your rankings on Apple Podcast search, nowhere else. So if you go and search for membership sites, right? And if I have a membership site about podcasts about membership sites, it doesn't matter how many reviews I have. If the word membership sites doesn't appear in my title, And if my site says recurring revenue Ravi or something like that, it doesn't matter. It's not going to show up. I can have 1,000 reviews and you have one review and or zero reviews, and your site, your podcast is membership site mastery. You're going to show up first. Just simple search engine optimization techniques. So I told him, don't waste your time on this one. Give there are various other ways to encourage people to subscribe, tell people about what you're talking about. You're not like, hey, subscribe to my podcast, subscribe to my. You're not going to go on the street and hand out flyers saying subscribe to my podcast. You're going to say, hey, I talk about these things. I'm an NBA show. Do you listen to NBA? Right? You have to go after the topic. So you can go on the street and say, if you're doing that obnoxious thing, I'm just giving an example. Hey, do you listen to the NBA? Hey, you're wearing a Miami Heat T-shirt or a Los Angeles Lakers T-shirt. Do you listen? You should listen to the podcast. So you go after people who are interested in your niche, not just approach strangers and say, review my podcast or rating.
Don't
It
throw
doesn't
mud
matter.
against the wall and hope something sticks.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter at all. It's been proven over and over again. Apple Podcast rankings have very, very minuscule 0.001% to do with ratings and reviews. So it's a wasted call to action. And he said, no, a guru I'm following says that's the most important thing. I said, okay, good luck.
Well, you've been sharing a lot of great insights, and I appreciate it. I got one more question before we thank our sponsor and go to the imperfect action round, and I call this the wheel of whatever. I actually do have a wheel. It's in the process of getting painted, so we're going to pretend that got spun right there. And also, if anyone has any ideas on how I can make it click, I really do want it to click so the mic picks it up. I have no problem doing sound effects each time, but if you have an idea on how to make the wheel click, I was thinking like twist ties or something, or I don't know. I do have a wheel. It's on the show, and I'm excited about it. So this is the wheel of whatever. And my question for you, since you've made reference to sports, okay, who is your favorite sports athlete, and would you rather have lunch or dinner with them, and why?
Oh, LeBron James is my favorite athlete
Why
of
is
all
that?
time. Because I'm a huge NBA fan. I've been watching NBA for a very long time, and when he first came into the league with a lot of hype, I cautiously started following him, and nobody has ever, maybe Tiger Woods and LeBron, only two athletes who came in with extreme pressure. They were prodigies when they were 14 years old, and every day they said, this guy's going to be the greatest, this guy's going to be the greatest. And nobody can handle pressure like that from your 12, 13, 14 years old. And they came in to the sport and they dominated, and everybody's like, it's beginner's luck. Then they're like, you watch him next year, he'll tank. They're waiting, constant criticism, hatred, blah blah blah. And every day, every game, he comes in and exceeds expectation. That's very hard to do with anything, right? Whether you're manufacturing cars or software. Imagine every single release or every single product you put out is just blowing people away every day. You can't do that, and the way he plays, and his style of play, unselfish passing, all that stuff. So yeah, he does have his so we almost like, once you become such a big fan of somebody, you start apologizing for them. So if there are any weaknesses in their game, you say, you know what, he's going to get better, don't worry about it. So you kind of like become like take on a brother or child or a parent role and say, okay, you know what, you're going to give them the benefit of doubt. That's how it's always. Like, Republicans are always going to be Republicans, Democrats are always going to be Democrats, right? So very few people are independent. So like that, once you are in with somebody, you defend them to death.
What about the lunch or dinner?
Oh, it doesn't matter. I would rather have lunch and then hang out with him for the rest of the day, because if it's dinner, then he eats and goes home. I don't get to hang out with him. So
Okay.
definitely lunch.
Well, excellent. We're going to thank our sponsor and come back for the imperfect action round. All right, we are back with the imperfect action round. Ravi, are you ready to take imperfect action?
Sure. For a second, I was like, "Oh, you're back with the imperfect guest." I thought you were going to say. I was like,
No,
"Yes,
it's
I'm
the
very."
what we've been talking about, taking that imperfect action. This is I got three-ish questions for you. Um, three questions as part of this round, and then there's a couple more. But 60-second answers, real quick, and they're
Oh, that's a tough
specific
one.
because when I designed the show, I wanted to get the most benefit for the listeners, and these are things that they can apply today. And one of the things I have with all my coaching clients is you have to take daily, fast, imperfect action. So when I was coming up with the show flow, I was like, racking my brain, what should I call it? Same thing with the wheel or whatever. Couldn't think of a name. I was like, whatever. I go, oh my gosh, WW. Awesome. Sold.
Or
So,
wheel WOW. Wow.
yeah. So, imperfect action round. These are things that people can implement right now. What is, in your experience, the fastest path to the cash?
To making money like online or like you mean like that?
In business. I'm not
Or in
going to
business,
pigeonhole it.
make more offers. I call it mommy. MOMMY. More offers means more money for you. So you got to make more offers, not simply consume, create more, create less, promote more, make more, put together offers, because it's not just the product that sells, it's the entire offer, which means what is it, what is the benefits, what are the things coming with it, the bonuses, the coaching. So it's always the offers that's the most important thing, and most people spend the least amount of time on creating the
That
offer.
is awesome. And I love the acronym. I'm going to for sure make sure that's on the show notes on eainterviews.com. That is, and I'm going to tell the show team right now and be very deliberate about it. Jules, that is an expert authority insight, and that will have its own timestamp and bullet point now. That is awesome. Make more offers means more money for
Money
you.
for you, mommy. Yeah.
Love that. That is a true expert authority insight. Okay, that is so awesome. What was the second question?
So the flip side of that is
Prospects.
you shouldn't just keep making offers all the time. So that goes without saying.
They got
You
to be
don't want to be
structured the right
obnoxious.
way, but
Yeah.
a lot of people don't make enough of them. Second one, prospects. What is the biggest problem you see your prospects making and the fastest way they can fix it?
Priorities. So whether it's priorities in terms of using their time or their attention, or whether how they go about building their audience and following the wrong advice, trying to plant a tree in the backyard when you need food tomorrow, versus if you need food 5 years from now, you have to plant your garden. That's what these end of days people, I forget what they call them. There's a group, right? They're
Survivalist.
survivalists, right? So so you have to have that mentality too. I need to be green, I need to grow my own garden, fruits, something happens, that's fine, that's for 20 years from now or 5 years from now. But you have to know what's going to happen tomorrow. How do I make money tomorrow versus next week versus next month? You have to have a plan. And a lot of people get all of those things mixed up, and they're focusing on the wrong platforms just because some guru told them, hey, podcasting is the hottest thing right now, and they don't realize podcasting is a long-term play. Or they go and say, I'll start a YouTube channel and I'm going to make money with sponsors. That you could spend the next 2 years creating videos and you'll probably make $2,000 a year, or $100 a month. That's pocket change, it's fine. So you have to know what level, where to put your content, why you should put it, what level to make it, turn it into offers, you put it in your membership site, build an audience. So that's what
So the right strategy at the right time.
correct. I call it just in time. It's not I call it. It's called just in time learning. So you only learn what you need for to do the thing that's in front of you right now. But at the same time, it's like a financial advisor. I help people figure out, you want money for the short term, and you want retirement income, and you want money for your kids college fund. So you have to have short term, mid-term, long term, high risk, low risk, medium risk. So you have to have a balanced portfolio, whether it's your money or your strategy.
All right, third question. What is, in your experience, the best way to maximize customer lifetime value?
So you have to keep the main thing the main thing. So it's a basketball term. One of the coaches used it a long time ago. So you always have to know if LeBron James is, uh, he has playing great basketball. That's fine. But if he's making millions of dollars in sponsorships, or all these athletes on sponsorships and TV shows and TV deals and this and that and making movies, all of that is great, but all of that comes from keeping your main thing. The main thing, you still have, he still has to perform at a very high level in basketball. If you drops the basketball aspect, everything else goes away. You're not, nobody's paying millions of dollars to somebody who's not good on stage, right? So that's what you have to focus. What is your main thing? If and focus on your strengths and what is the best value you can provide to your audience. So if you keep providing that, so whether it's coaching, it usually has to be a combination of things, right? You can't just give them, keep churning out courses and courses and courses and throwing all these digital assets online when people are struggling how to use it. Why should I use it? Should I, when should I use it? You can't overwhelm people with content, so you need a little bit of content and coaching and community, at least depending on your niche. And if you're trying to be a digital entrepreneur, then you have to be able to provide some level of all three things. Keep that main thing the main thing, keep providing value, keep helping them, stay engaged in your community, stay in the weeds. Don't try to think you're above everything else. Eat your own dog food, so you always know what's going on, and participate in groups, forums, and communities, so you can keep your finger on the pulse of the community. Now you're bringing all that in and constantly creating stuff that your people need, your community needs. So take care of your existing customers. Don't always go for the shiny object or the new audience. If you take care of your existing customers and give them a good affiliate marketing deal, then they'll promote you, they'll be your biggest marketers. And then that's how, hopefully, you heard about digital access pass through so many different people, not because we are paying them. They didn't say, hey, go check out blah blah blah.com/dap, right? They told you the name of the product because they're not doing it just for the money, because we have been putting out, we care so
You
much
made that
about our
good product
products.
from the get-go, and that was part of just your culture. So,
Right.
I
It's
mean,
not, and it
there's
was
a
not
lot of
as always
people,
good. It's not perfect, but we had our ups and downs and bugs.
but you
But
always had
how
the
you
end
respond.
user in mind from
Right.
day one. You weren't just farming it out to someone going, "Here's an idea I think will work." You were in there on the ground floor, like you were talking about.
Right.
Let
So
me
it's
ask you
always
about
a
books. What are a couple of books that have made a big? What are
difference.
some good? What are some books that have made the biggest difference in your business?
Uh, it's not one or two. Seth Godin. I love Seth Godin stuff. So all his books, Purple Cow, and all marketers are liars, stuff like that. Anything that has to do with, and then um, some of the books like Outliers, and s- some business books. And one of those things was called Predictably Irrational by Dan Ariely, I believe. He's an Israeli author. He talks about how simple things like if you give somebody a piece of chocolate, um, then how they respond versus saying, putting a price on it, hey, this is only 25 cents, or then saying this is free and this is 25 cents. So all these psychological experiments he did on people, and then offering like the pricing table structures. So you all, if you offer only one option, a lot of people, a certain percentage of people didn't pick it. You have two options, then a little more people picked it. Now you have three options, but the third option is the same price as the two option but has more. So it's like digital product is $5, book is $10. Get both for only $10. Now, like majority of the people picked the third option because it had both. But if you just did the two options, they didn't pick the $10, even though it's the same cost. So they felt like, how to. So that's a fantastic book, Predictably Irrational,
I
and
like that. That's a
yeah.
great example. Also, it has been an absolute pleasure. Where can people learn more about you?
You go to subscribeme.fm. That's my name of my podcast as well. So if you're wherever you listen to podcasts, Spotify, just search for subscribeme.fm as one word, and you should find my show. And the website is also there. There you'll find all the links to my websites and my products and services, about me. So everything is there at subscribeme.fm. I've written my 6 books, all of them linked there, my software products, everything. My podcast, there's a beautiful player at the top. You can listen to my podcast right there. So it's all at subscribeme.fm.
Excellent. Well, Ravi, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I appreciate you for sharing with Expert Authority World.
Hey, thank you, Mario. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. I hope your listeners found this of value.
I know they got value out of it, and I'm going to make sure that it's reflected in the show notes. All right, Expert Authority World, we got another great episode here today. I will see you on tomorrow's. Have a great day, and God bless.